So maybe we can start off with you kind of explaining how you got started with Succulents and Sunshine, maybe like where the passion comes from behind it, and just kind of how you got started into the blogging world.
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree in photography. So I grew up taking pictures. Like I had a digital camera before there were even cameras that had a megapixel. Like I'm pretty sure my camera was 640 by 480. It was great. But I had been posting a lot of things on my photography blog and, just kind of having fun with that. This was, this would have been in 2012, maybe 2011. But I had kind of gotten into blogging. It was, to me, a new cool thing. And in the middle of winter, so I was living in Utah at the time, and in the middle of winter, we just had a bunch of like gray, gloomy days. And my mom was like, let's go to a nursery. Let's go buy plants and have something green and happy and pretty. And I'd seen succulents in magazines, and I knew they were kind of cool. One of my cousins had them in her wedding bouquet, and that was kind of like what really started piquing my interest. So on this nasty gray day, we went to a succulent nursery, and Cactus and Tropicals is what it was called. And I bought my first 3 succulents, and I had no idea how to take care of them. So I started like searching everywhere on the internet, got a bunch of books, and I didn't feel like anything really related to where I was growing them. Like all of the books and anything there wasn't very much online at all. But anything I found, it was really catered towards people who were growing them in Southern California outside. And I was growing them in Utah with, crazy cold winters, and I was growing them inside on a windowsill. So I started taking pictures, posting them on my blog, and just saying, look at these pretty succulents. Here's what I'm doing with them. And just started experimenting. And I was kind of looking for clients at the time. I had a pretty regular client, but, just trying to find more clients. And that's when I started learning about how to make money online and listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast while I was working and taking photos. And I realized, I'm like, oh, well, I should put analytics on my site, see how I can get more people to my website to get more photography clients. And I realized that I was already getting organic traffic from these succulent posts on propagating succulents. And a light bulb kind of went off. I'm like, this is it. This is what I should do. So a little while later, it wasn't like immediate, but a little while later, I moved everything over to the succulentsandsunshine.com domain and really started being intentional about building a business out of it and just really trying to help people who were in my same situation by just sharing my research with them, essentially. So at that point, I had a lot of experience, not a lot. I had some experience myself. And then I just started connecting with succulent growers down in California and just trying to learn as much as I could. And then portraying that on the blog with pretty photos and trying to follow all of the right things to make sure I was going to rank in Google and get search traffic, which is where we get the bulk of our traffic still today. Yeah. So it's really evolved since then. Like we still have technically some of those same posts, but they are much better than they used to be. And then we now have a couple ebooks that we sell, a couple courses, and then we also have our Succulent Lovers Club where we do new classes and Q&A sessions every month, and different affiliates we work with and ad revenue. So it's been a really interesting journey. And at one point I told my husband, I'm like, man, if we could make like $5,000 a month from this would be amazing. And this year we've currently done just over $200,000 in revenue. So it's been that's amazing. Really cool to see how this thing that I thought would maybe make like 60,000 at some point is definitely doing a lot more, and we can see potential for it to keep growing.
Wow, that's huge. I think you should be extremely proud of yourself. I know developing a blog and actually sticking to it is one of the main things that you need to be able to do to get started. And I know a lot of people try and don't necessarily stick with it. And I can imagine the amount of stress and effort and time that goes into building a blog of your size. So hats off to you. You should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say you're spot on. Like there have been a number of times I've been ready to throw in the towel and just be like, no, we're done. I
Yeah.
don't want to see succulents again. But I keep coming back to it because it's fun and interesting, and there's always something new to do and to learn, which
Right.
is,
And you have young kids, right? So
yes.
you have, so you get to be at home at least and work near your family, which is definitely a plus, I'm sure.
Yeah, we love it. And they will tell you that they work at Succulents and Sunshine.
Yeah.
So they love it too. They think it's fun. Although they don't really know. My husband and I have never like worked a traditional job since they've been alive. And so the idea of like mom or dad like leaving for a day to go to work is so foreign to them.
Right.
Which is interesting, but we love it.
Well, they might follow the same path. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before you decided to make a switch to BigScoots, you of course were hosted with a different company. Were you having any issues with that previous company, or was there one particular reason you started to look for a new host?
Yeah. So I guess a little backstory. So I started on a shared host, like most people I'm sure do. And I wouldn't say like I had a bad experience, but I knew I needed to switch to something else as the site got bigger to increase like site speed, to help with search rankings and all of that. So I found someone through Upwork to help me switch over to Linode. And because after doing research, I'm like, okay, they're like a super fast service, but I knew I wouldn't be able to manage it myself. Like it was beyond the tech level that I wanted to figure out. And so we found someone through Upwork, and he was awesome. Like he got it all set up. He was, all things considered, he was really reliable. And I think we did that for about 3 years maybe. And I would say in general, I was pretty happy with the service, but what made me decide to switch is he's one person. And if he went out of town and I had a problem, I was stuck and I didn't really have anyone else to help. And I can be a little bit, well, I don't know. I need my site to be up at all times, right? Like that's our income. Of course. So if things go wrong, then I had a tendency to try and fix it myself, which usually made things worse. So he'd come back and be like, oh, you should have done that. You should have done that. And after we had one of those experiences, I thought, you know what, there's probably got to be a service out there that will give me the same speed and reliability, but also better support. So I reached out to Grayson Bell, who I knew was like a WordPress expert, and asked him what he recommended in terms of hosting. And he recommended you guys. And so I think I called like the day that he recommended them. I was very ready to make the switch. And again, it wasn't like a really bad experience before. It was just, I'm like, I just need a little more support.
Of course, yeah.
So I called, and I can't remember the name of the guy I talked to.
It was probably Scott.
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And he was so helpful. Like even before we like talked about me switching over, I sent him this super duper long email. And I mean, it was like 10 paragraphs and not like one sentence. Like they were long paragraphs, like giving him the history of my website. And so he had read that, and then we hopped on a call, and he talked to me like for 30 minutes about what my site would need and all of these things. And without even knowing if I would actually buy, or join BigScoots. But I just felt like I was so taken care of, and it was so nice. Like even if I'd gone with a different host, I feel like I gained so much from that conversation. But obviously I'm here. So I joined on the spot, and we like started everything right away. So that first call was like an hour, and that got everything into the works. And it was on a Friday too. So it was like worst day of the week to start something like this. But I should have looked it up. I can't remember, either by Monday or Tuesday, my site, like my main Succulents and Sunshine website, was all switched over and running so smoothly. And there weren't even any hiccups. Like it was just kind of too good to be true. But anyway, so at that point I'm like, okay, we're here forever.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny that you said it was a Friday, and that's usually the worst day of the week to do things, because often our clients say that to us or ask us that question if we are available as 24/7 as we say that we are. But that could have been Christmas Day or New Year's Day, and Scott especially still would have done that exact same thing for you. So that's really great to hear. Kind of touching on what you said about your migration being seamless and how there was no bumps in the road. We did do a pretty large migration for you, moving over 9 sites at the time. Speaking of which, how do you manage the time to manage 9 sites?
Well, they're not all created equal. We'll just say that. Really, the main site that we run is Succulents and Sunshine. And the other ones are projects that just kind of sit there and I don't do them. Actually, that's not true. 2 of the sites my sister-in-law runs. Okay. So we just share hosting, and so 2 of them are hers. One of them is much larger than any of our other sites. So 3 of them are pretty active. 2 of them she manages, and then the other ones, they really just kind of sit there and we work on them as needed. And eventually, our plan actually in 2020 is to get one of them like really up and running and getting it to where we can have ads on the site and get more traffic. But
amazing.
Yeah, but moving it over with that many of them, that was one of the concerns I talked to him about. I'm like, I have obviously my main site, and I'm like, that's the one that for me the migration is most important on. And then also my sister-in-law's site. I'm like, beyond those 2, I kind of don't care what the timeline is for the other sites, and if there's problems, it's not as big a deal. They're not driving our revenue or income. But even still, well, so one of the things we did is we have the really active sites on a bigger, faster server, and then the smaller sites on a slower server. So everything that was on the bigger server all got transitioned first because that was the priority. And everything on that, like I said, was done in like 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. And then the other ones, I think it maybe took a week, but it's not because it was harder. It was just because I didn't need it moved over super fast. And so I think they just did it when they had time, which was totally fine. And I wanted to like stress that to him. Like, I want this one done fast. The others, whatever works. Okay. But it was still really smooth. I don't really think I did a whole lot. I gave him like login information and kind of explained what needed to go where. And that was it. And it was just really nice. Like compared to any other hosting related thing that I have encountered, I feel like I don't do any work. I feel like you guys do it all. And I feel like that's the way that it should be with a service. And so that's the thing I've loved is just you guys are always there taking care of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we pride ourselves on, right? Like we want to be able to handle your site and the back end of everything so that you can focus on what is growing your business and focus on your passion and leave the rest to us. Yeah. So during your conversation with Scott, I'm sure he told you that your migration would be absolutely seamless, no bumps in the road. Were you confident that that in fact would happen, or were you a little nervous about that? Or did you believe what he said, that it would be seamless?
So I'm sure I had some doubt on some level, but because I had gotten the referral from Grayson, who I was really confident in, and then also because I just had this like long conversation with him and he'd put so much time into learning about my business before even saying, well, here's what we can do for you. I think we'd already established that level of trust where I'm like, okay, if you say you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And I mean, it wasn't that it's expensive. Now it's like a no-brainer. I knew we were going to be doubling up on hosting for the month. And so that's what made it a little expensive.
Right.
So that was my biggest thing. I'm like, okay, is this really worth it to switch to this? But I don't really, I'm probably like totally blinded now because I just love BigScoots so much, but I don't.
That's okay. We like that.
Yeah. I don't think I had any like major fear or hesitation about it. I was definitely ready to make the switch and felt like it was a good option. Good.
That's amazing to hear. So you have been in Works with us since January of this year. Do you feel like your workflow has changed at all since making the switch over to us? And do you feel like you can trust us moving forward as your business continues to grow?
Yes, absolutely. As far as the trust aspect, as far as my workflow changing, it probably has a little bit. So before, I still feel like I kind of had like I did have a dedicated server manager, but I was always kind of hesitant to contact him about something. I'm like, well, maybe I should figure it out so that I don't have to pay him or bother him, or maybe he won't get it done fast enough. So that has changed in the sense that now I'm like, oh, we need this. I'll just email BigScoots and like have them take care of it. And that's the thing that I have been like blown away by. I know you mentioned this in the email, like sometimes you guys respond within a minute, and it's almost creepy, but it's amazing. Like like even just this week, one of my sister-in-laws was working on a school project and needed like a clean WordPress install on her website. So I bought the domain and I emailed you guys and I said, hey, could you get this set up with just a fresh WordPress install? And I think it was done in like 10 minutes, which is insane. Like if I had to do that myself, it would have taken a really long time. And in some ways, like, I don't even know if that's normally a service you offer, but I just feel like anything I email support, they are so happy to do it, and they do it fast. And like anything else we can help you with, like, let us know. And I think almost every time I email them, I'm like, thank you so much for responding so fast and like getting that resolved. There's been a couple things like with one of our other sites, we're kind of redirecting it all to a new domain. And we had a list of like 100 redirects, maybe more, that we needed for like the individual posts. And I asked him, like, is that something that you guys can set up? Is there some way we should do it? And the cool thing was they showed me where in the back end of the website I could do it, which is great. But they're like, but if you want to just send us the list, we can put it all in for you. So it was like, you can do this yourself, but we'll still do it for you anyway. And that may not be the case with everything, but I just feel like every single time something pops up for me, I'm like, let's see if BigScoots knows. Let's see if they can do it. And it's always handled so fast and super well. I'm trying to think if we've even had, well, there's been a couple of times where like I'll do updates to plugins and then the site crashes.
Right.
And they'll come back and fix it within like a few minutes, which is one of the things that 2 years ago, it would have been so frustrating because I'm like, okay, hopefully he responds back in the next few minutes and happens to be on right now. And yeah, so there's just always, I don't know. I feel like my workflow has changed in that I'm way more confident in just asking for help with all the back end stuff. And I'm not worried at all about the site being up or down. If something goes wrong, there's always someone there in a couple minutes that can fix it.
Yeah, our support team is very quick, and we all operate 24/7. So even if something happens at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's always a support team member there to assist you. As you may or may not know, we do proactively monitor all of our client sites. So often cases, if you get a response back that quickly, it could have been something that they were already looking at, that you just happened to shoot an email over or a support ticket just before then. But yeah, you've been keeping us pretty busy over the last year, I would say. I was looking through support tickets. There's quite a few of them, but we're always eager to help and excited to. And we love that our clients can just trust us and put that weight on us rather than you having to carry it. So with that in mind, do you feel, I guess, do you have any feedback in that sense? Like, do you feel like there's any room for improvement in that area?
No.
Okay. That's a great answer.
Yeah. The one thing that's been nice is I've never felt like I'm a bother. Like you said, like we've submitted a lot of support tickets, and some of them are little like, hey, can you, I don't know. I don't know what a little thing is, but like, oh, this email isn't working. Can you check into it? And it takes like 2 minutes to fix. So some of them are little and then some of them are bigger, but I've never had anyone respond to me in a way that I'm like, okay, sorry, I won't bug you next time. Maybe the one thing, and part of me doesn't want to say this, but the one thing would be like just being more clear on, well, this is actually something that we'd prefer you do. But again, like, I think that's kind of, at least from my experience, that's been your guys' thing is we'll just take care of it for you. If you want to do it here, great. If not, we'll just keep taking care of it for you. Right. There have been a few things like that with redirects where they're like, if you want to if you have like 1 or 2, just paste them in here. And we haven't done that yet, but I'm sure we will at some point.
Yeah. So speaking of redirects, that would lead you to your WordPress portal. Have you spent much time within your WPO portal? Do you find it useful?
I have spent a little bit of time in there.
Okay.
My initial reaction is it's not, what's the right word? It's not like super confusing, but one of the things for me with hosting is it's like there's so many things to manage on the website that sometimes it's hard to find what you're looking for. And so usually I'll spend like a minute or two looking for something. And then if I can't find it, then I'm asking you guys where it is.
Yeah.
And then they just take care of it. And so I feel like maybe I'm a little bit enabled in that way where it's like, I'm not going to figure this out because they just always fix it. So, but I will say it is a lot easier to find things than other companies I worked with, like especially when we were on Linode, which Linode is designed to have someone managing the server. Like if you want to make a change on Linode, you have to know the platform. It's not designed to be like user friendly to a consumer, for a developer. But even with like the shared hosting, I feel like the back end on BigScoots has been much easier to find and navigate than the shared hosting that we were using.
Okay, but it could maybe be a bit more user friendly.
Yeah, but you guys just make it not necessary, which is wonderful. And great. But like even just little things like I know one of the support tickets we put in was like I couldn't find the FTP login for a particular site, or we had the FTP login and it wasn't working, and so they just reset it and then sent me the information via email, and I know that's in there, and so I just wasn't sure if I was looking in the wrong place or something.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So among all of the premium WordPress hosting businesses, we like to think that we're priced very competitively. On average, we're anywhere, depending on the other company you're looking at, we're anywhere from 4 to 5 times less than most of our competitors. With that in mind, do you feel like you get a lot of value out of us for the lower price that we do offer?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So I looked a little bit into other like managed services, and I remember thinking for the size of my site, it was ridiculously expensive. So I don't know. Well, and actually also for the number of domains, which the thing that was tricky for me is I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of domains, but they're not all super active and big, but I was still being charged extra, or would have been charged extra for each domain. So I think there was one that I was looking at that it was going to be over $1,000 a month, which I'm making enough I could pay for that, but I'm like, it's got to be cheaper. And then with Linode, which was not managed, between like the Linode service and then paying the guy who was managing the server, it ended up costing me about the same as what I'm paying at BigScoots, except I have you guys 24/7, like you mentioned, have the amazing support. So I feel like, especially for the number of times I think I contact you guys, I feel like it's hands down worth it. And some days I'm like, they should probably be charging me more, but I'm happy to be charged what I am. But yeah, definitely worth what you pay for it.
Good. That's great to hear. One reason we can keep our prices smaller is because we are quite a smaller team compared to some of our larger competitors. So each time you do contact us, you are getting in touch with an actual real human being. Even if you're just on our live chat option on our website, it's still one of us directly. And we're able to keep our prices lower because it is actually us, and we're a little bit smaller of a team. Can I just ask if there's been any interactions with our team that have stood out to you in particular?
The URLs I mentioned, like that was something that seemed really silly and just like silly to me, like it's not that big a deal, but I don't know, I felt like we just got a really good response. Actually, the other thing, this was actually not totally my experience. So like I mentioned, my sister-in-law has a website that is also on my hosting. And the theme that she was using, she was running into some problems with like spam getting into the opt-in forms. And it ended up being a problem with the theme and not with the hosting, but we needed to give the theme support access to her website. And I actually wasn't sure if I had access to everything that they were looking for. So the thing that was really awesome is you guys just, the support team emailed them in conjunction with emailing me. So like I got updated on everything, but they were copying the website themes support company on everything and working through it with them. And I feel like that was kind of above and beyond what I had expected. I had planned to kind of be like a middleman, like going back and forth between the two, like, okay, they say they need this, can you give me this? Or they need this and I need this. So that was something that I felt like was really impressive to me, is again, without like saying, all right, yeah, I guess we can do it. You know, they were just like, yeah, sure. Like have them email us and we can take care of it. And it all got resolved, which was great. So I feel like almost every experience is like that though, where it's like, okay, is this something you can really do? And they're like, yeah, no problem. We'll take care of it. But that one, especially because it was kind of a headache for me. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. The site is all secure. I don't know why it's not blocking the spam. And so it was nice just to have them take care of it and do it again, quickly, as always.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I do feel like a lot of our clients are sometimes, I don't want to say afraid or nervous, but for lack of a better word, I'll say nervous to reach out to us to ask for a particular inquiry or request. And we will never say no. As it doesn't matter how large or small the request is, as long as we're able to do it, we will do it. And if we don't know how to do it, we'll figure out how to do it and make sure it's done properly. So yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Well, and I feel that like every single time. And I think because of what I was switching from, where I felt like I wasn't getting support, I think I've maybe gone overboard on just being like, well, they said yes to that. Like,
and that's fine.
It's like, okay, well, if they said yes to that, well, they say yes to this. But yeah, and you know, it ebbs and flows. Like, I think we just did the domain earlier this week, but I don't know. I feel like I've been a little bit slower lately. We haven't had as many issues, but for a while it was like I had 1 or 2 support tickets in a day because we had so many changes going on, and they kept them all straight and, you know, like kept track of everything. I don't know.
That's good. You keep us busy. So just kind of a very non-direct question. On a scale of 1 to 1,000, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or family member?
So normally I would say 1,000, but the one reason I'd probably say more like 900, but only because, and this is probably like ignorance on my part, I don't know what your pricing or setup would be like for intro bloggers, like people who are just starting a website. But then the flip side of that is I'm like, I don't know, it'd be worth paying whatever it would be to have all the support and not have to worry about the tech. But yeah, I would say 1,000, because it's just, I feel like maybe I've seemed a little overly in love with BigScoots on this call, but I really feel that way. And anytime I see someone asking about a host, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to go with BigScoots. And I have no hesitation in recommending it to people because I've had a good experience, and I know several other bloggers who've had really good experiences. I haven't ever heard anything negative about you guys. So even the lady that I have a web designer that helps me with things on it every once in a while. And we were setting something up and she's like, and who's your host? And I'm like, BigScoots. And she's like, oh, I've been with BigScoots for 6 years. I love them. I'm so glad you switched. And so I personally have had a good experience, and everyone I've talked to has had it. So I have like full confidence in recommending it to people.